Hi, everybody, and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. It's the last round of Kentucky Derby preps before the first Saturday in May, and DRF Handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I have got you covered. The Arkansas Derby, the main event at Oaklawn. The Lexington Stakes offers Kentucky Derby qualifying points at Keeneland. We'll also have coverage of the Jenny Wiley Stakes, a Grade 1 race on turf for fillies and mares. Timeform US's David Aragona and Craig Milkowski, they spotlight the Arkansas Derby, and Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment focuses on the bloodlines of several key contenders in the Lexington Stakes, plus best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst, you smoked out a flashy first-time starter for trainer Jorge Abreu.
Yeah, New York bred maiden fillies on the Wood Day undercard. This came in race number 2, Flash Pack and Barbie's her name, trained by Jorge Abreu. She made her career debut. She took some money. A New York bred in name only. She's by Munnings. She's a half-sister to Fabian, who you guys will remember, trained by Baffert, Grade 2 winner, second in the test. This filly has pedigree. Let's look at her debut. She was a little green early. She had speed, but she was a little bit green. She was already straightened out by the time we pick up the replay here, and she's just going to run over the top of this field and win off as she pleases by over 8 lengths. A 77 buyer for a New York bred filly this early in the year. I think this filly might have some potential. A lot of pedigree, a lot of speed. This was a pretty impressive debut.
Very professional the way this horse finishes it off as well, drawing away from the field. A really nice effort, to be sure. Matt, you correctly picked the winner of the Transylvania opening week at Keeneland, and you really liked what you saw from Avies Flatter. You think this one might have a big year?
Yeah, I've liked him ever since he was a 2-year-old. I thought he did some nice things early on up at Woodbine, and then this is his first start off of a long layoff. Let's take a look at the stretch run of the Transylvania. This is on grass. Keep in mind, this is a horse that's going to be the favorite, or he was the Winter Book favorite anyway, for the Queen's Plate up at Woodbine. And this is also a horse that goes out for a barn in Josie Carroll's that they're not usually cranked up first off the bench. The fact that he was able to win, okay, the figs might not have been brilliant, an 81 buyer and a 103 Timeform US rating, but to me, this is nothing more than a starting off point. I really like this horse, guys. I've liked everything about him, and I think he's just going to continue to improve as he gets older.
My Horse Watch also won at Keeneland last week, a maiden race for trainer Chad Brown. His name is Honest Mischief, and he just has a beautiful pedigree. He's a half-brother to First Defense, who won the Grade 1 Forgo Stakes. The Dam, a Grade 1 Stakes winner in her own right, is a half-sister to Empire Maker, of course, winner of the Belmont Stakes. Let's go back to Bluegrass Saturday. This is the second lifetime start for Honest Mischief, and he just sweeps past everybody to make the lead. He was 4 wide on the backstretch. He takes over, and he just pulls away to win by 8 lengths, completing 7 furlongs in 122.43, a time which compared favorably with the Grade 2 Commonwealth for 4-year-olds and up. They went 7 furlongs in 122.8 later on the card. Honest Mischief earned a 93 buyer speed figure for this race. I have a feeling he's stakes bound for trainer Chad Brown. Keep an eye out for this beautifully bred Juddmonte homebred. That is Honest Mischief. Let's get to some handicapping. The Arkansas Derby, final major Kentucky Derby prep. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 1 $1 million Arkansas Derby to be contested as race number 11 at Oaklawn on Saturday. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded races this weekend, plus lots more, please visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, Bob Baffert means business when he adds blinkers to his 3-year-olds. Improbable gets the shades for the first time on Saturday.
Yeah, he's going to be the chalk. This is sort of a Captain Obvious pick in here, but I just think there's real reason to think he's going to take a step forward in his second start as a 3-year-old. Let's go back to his seasonal debut. This was one of the split divisions of the Rebel. You see him on the outside now. The thing you want to keep an eye on during this replay, watch his head once he makes the front. He's going to start looking out at the grandstand right now. It just feels like he's lost focus, and he's going to get run down by what's turned out to be a nice horse in long range, Toddy. The blinkers go on. Dan, you brought it up. The statistics for Baffert with this sort of move, they're off the charts. I think he sits a pretty solid pocket trip in here and behind the speeds. Maybe Omaha Beach can tow him into the run, and then you take your shot. Again, he's Captain Obvious, but I like him in here.
Mike, you've been a big fan of Country House since day one, and he's going to be the best price he's been in any of these preps so far. Has he figured out the gate yet?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe this is a case of me going back to the well one time too many, but I want to give this horse one more chance, if only because it feels like there's a lot of speed in this race, and he might actually get a real setup in here for the first time in a while. And I still think he has some ability. When you go back to his last race, I just feel like he had no chance in that Louisiana Derby trying to circle into it around the second turn. It wasn't happening. This race seems like it could set up better for him. We're going to show a replay now of his maiden win. This is 3 starts back. He's moved on from this race. We're just going to show it again because this is the replay we have. It's just worth noting again, his start in this race was basically disastrous, and it's the kind of break from the gate that gets horses beat all the time. It didn't get this horse beat. He actually won very impressively. This was sort of his coming out party. I think this horse is pretty good, guys. I know he doesn't break from the gate that well. He's got to improve to beat this field, but he might have a real chance in this race the way the pace feels like it's going to play out. I still think he's pretty good. I'm giving him one more chance at a price.
Omaha Beach began his career with a string of short-priced losses, and a lot of folks were wondering if he was ever going to live up to the hype. Then 2 starts back, he caught a wet track, and there might be some wet weather at Oaklawn on Saturday, and he just destroyed a maiden field, which led to this performance in the slightly faster division of the Rebel. Watch Mike Smith and how confidently he's riding Omaha Beach. He doesn't seem to feel he's in any danger, even though that's the then undefeated 2-year-old champion game winner attacking on the outside. Smith is still only hand riding Omaha Beach until inside the 16th pole, and finally when game winner gets to his flank, does Smith go to work with his left-handed stick. I like how Omaha Beach dug in, got the job done, and game winner never got by him on the gallop out. I think this horse has finally figured it out, and he has the stalking ability to sit off some questionable speeds in this race. I think he'll get the jump on horses like Country House, and perhaps even on a horse like Improbable turning into the lane. We'll find out if Omaha Beach is the real deal in this year's Arkansas Derby. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment focuses on the horses in the Lexington Stakes. Then we've got Craig Milkowski from Timeform US. He takes a look at the pace projector for the Arkansas Derby.
Hey guys, Nicole Russo coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky for Out of the Gate. And the Lexington Stakes will be run this Saturday at Keeneland. Now, this race could have Kentucky Derby implications for the likes of Another Twist of Fate, who passed his dirt tax last out in the Sunland Derby, and Sueño, both trying to earn their way into the field on points. Even Nick's Go, who won the Breeders' Futurity here at Keeneland and finished second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Churchill, has some points. But I want to take a pedigree look at another stakes winner in this field and how he might fare while trying some different things. Hawaiian Noises won sprinting on the Keeneland Dirt last fall before winning a pair of races sprinting on Turfway's synthetic track, most recently winning the Animal Kingdom Stakes at 6.5 furlongs. He's getting back on dirt and stretching out here. And the Super Saber Colt definitely has a dirt-oriented pedigree. He is a half-brother to Conquest Panthera, who was a Grade 2 winner and Grade 1 placed on the turf. But that one is by Turf Sire Kitten's Joy. When paired with other stallions, the mare has produced dirt-graded stakes winner Happy Like a Fool and graded placed Maniacal. What concerns me is that these are all sprint runners. Farther back in the family, there are some Grade 1 winners routing, such as French Colonial, Nine Keys, and Silver Voice, but the immediate female family says more speed to me. And even Super Saber, his best runner to date is champion sprinter Run Happy. Hawaiian Noises should like the track, but we'll see if he can last. That being said, I think the Keeneland Dirt has been pretty kind to horses with some speed at this meet. And considering how I think he'll handle the dirt, I do consider him an exotics candidate as a nice price, as maybe some might falsely write him off as a synthetic specialist. And also, if some of the horses coming back on short rest here in an attempt to make the Derby field bounce or come up empty after a hard campaign, he could be there to pick up the pieces. The Lexington, one of 4 stakes, 3 of those graded on Saturday's card at Keeneland. We're taking you through all of the weekend's action right here on Out of the Gate.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski at Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. In the pace projector segment today, I'm going to take a look at the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby being run as a feature race on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. And the reason I chose it is because it's just a whole lot of early speed is signed into this race. A full 10 of the 11 members of the field are assigned a Timeform US running style of either leader, speed, or tracker. So there's only one left who we'll talk about eventually when we get to him in this segment. But just a lot of speed here. Almost impossible to think that the pace will be anything but fast. Let's take a closer look at that pace projector, and you can see quite a few horses are not only shown up front. We have a full 3 of them shown right on the front end, 3 more right behind, but they're also very bunched up, which leads to these fast paces. It's one thing to set a fast pace on a clear, easy lead, quite another to be contested, and not just contested, but probably at various points in the race and by various number of horses. So let's take a look at some of the contenders in the race, some of the bigger names. We'll start out with Improbable, who drew inside here. He's the likely favorite, I would think, at post time. For good reason. He's trained by Bob Baffert, of much Triple Crown race success, as we know. He's run 2 big speed figures his last 2 times out. One when he took the Los Al Futurity, and then in his return in the first division of the Rebel Stakes at this same Oaklawn track. He got 116 for both. Probably expecting some improvement here. He probably wasn't fully cranked that first time off the bench. And the one thing to note, and it was visible on the pace projector, is that he is adding blinkers here. So while he has rated off the pace somewhat in his first few tries, drawing the inside here, he's probably going to be closer up than he usually is. I'm not sure that's a good thing in here. Obviously a talented horse, but I'm going to take a shot against. Another horse who's likely to vie for favoritism is Omaha Beach. He won the 2nd division of the Rebel on that same day over a 2-year-old champion Game Winner. That looked like a good win, and it is a good win. Speed figure-wise, he got a 117. He backed up his win with a 115 in his previous maiden breaking score. But maybe the race lost just a little bit of luster when Game Winner came back in the Santa Anita Derby just last Saturday and was beaten again for the 2nd time in 2 2019 starts. But he ran fast. He's going to be right up near the pace again. Certainly a talented horse and one of the likely winners. The winner of that first division who beat Improbable was Long Range Toddy. He's one of just a few horses who have won 2 Derby points races. He took the Springboard Mile at Remington Park as a 2-year-old. He had a lot of trouble 2 back in the Southwest Stakes and when he lost to big long shot Super Steed that day. But he ran really nice last time when he drew inside, saved ground, sat off the leading group and was able to outfinish Improbable that day, who had a wider trip admittedly. But he also ran well to get a 116 Timeform US speed figure. The difference is today he's drawn far outside, so that good trip is probably going to be a little bit tougher to get. He may be shuffled back a little further than he's used to. So like the other 2 I've mentioned, they certainly could win the race, but I'm not going to be on them here. I'm going to go with number 8, Country House. A big part of that is the pace projector. It's one thing to be a closer in a fast-paced field. It's even more to be the only horse who has that late running style. He has shown a habit of being off slowly in his races, but given the makeup of the field, that's probably not going to be much of an issue here. If the fast pace develops that we expect, I think he's going to keep improving. You can note his last 3 races went from a 93 to a 106 up to a 111. I have no qualms thinking this horse could run as fast as a 120 here, given the setup he's going to get. And he's going to be my selection at a nice price. I'll probably bet him to win in place, thinking he's going to be at least 8 to 1 in here, probably more. He's trained by Bill Mott, who has another Derby contender in Tacitus, who won the Wood Memorial last weekend. The barn's going well, and he is definitely my top pick. That does it for this week's edition of Out of the Gate, and I'll see you next week.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 3 $200,000 Lexington Stakes at 1 1/16 for 3-year-olds at Keeneland. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded races all weekend long, plus lots more, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. This race does carry some Kentucky Derby points. If another Twist of Fate or Swayno win this race, it's quite possible they will get into the Derby. Harvey Wallbanger already has a win in a prep, Matt. This is a horse, though, that needs pace. He got it when he won the Holy Bull. It was a different story last time.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of sums up this horse in a nutshell. If he gets pace, he can come with a run. If he doesn't, I just think he's way up against it. In this race, I guess it remains to be seen. I don't think it's going to be a blistering pace. I think it'll be honest, but I still don't know if it's good enough for this horse to come with his big bid. Let's go to the run 2 starts back. This is the race that he won down at Gulfstream in the Holy Bull. You're going to see it's a perfect trip. He shoots up the inside. You see those fractions. Timeform had all of those fractions color-coded red. He took advantage. Again, maybe I'm being unkind to him, but 7-2 on the morning line seems just entirely too short for a horse like this, in my opinion. I would need 5 times his price to have any interest in him.
Mike, from a buyer speed figure standpoint, another Twist of Fate looks like a standout. His last 2 buyer speed figures are faster than anything the rest of the field has ever earned. And going into his most recent start, the Sunland Derby, the only question really was whether he could handle the surface. And while he didn't win the race, I think he proved he can handle dirt just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. He's run really well basically in all of his races. And, you know, the big test for him last time was switching surfaces off the synthetic, which you know that he likes, and taking another spin on dirt, which he hadn't been on since his debut. His debut was a little bit of a disaster, but he was also very green in there. Not the case in the Sunland Derby last time. We'll put the replay up. I like the ride that he got in this race. He was forward early. The pace started to develop, so they took him back and sat in behind the lead. And you can see him here at the stretch. He had to wait for the eventual winner to clear him before he got out into the open at the top of the stretch. I like the run he put in, guys. He finishes very well in this race. He paired up his 94. To me, it shows he can handle dirt. I just think he's way the horse to beat in this race.
Yeah, and you know, I think the thing that Mike alluded to, the paired up 94s, I kind of look at it and say, if you're looking for a little kind of a pet handicapping angle, pairing up those top figures, I think it sort of projects and means that they're going to take a step forward next out. He may not even need to take a step forward, but I think if he does, I just think he's strictly the horse to beat.
He is absolutely the horse to beat, and for me, a must-use in any kind of multiple race wager. I want to give the number 3 Swayno, however, a little bit of a chance at a slightly better price. Last time out, he disappointed in the Louisiana Derby when he took up the chase as the primary pace pursuer, and he just didn't kick in the stretch. Maybe 1 1/8 is just a little bit too far for him. We'll go back to his race 2 starts back at Oaklawn Park, and he had a similar trip as the 3rd place finisher Long Range Toddy, where on the far turn, both horses were sort of locked in behind, and we see this long shot Super Steed, who made a long, wide move to the front, eventually get the momentum and make the lead. Swayno is running at this horse at the end. I just think he got clear a little bit too late. He finished ahead of 3 next out winners, including Long Range Toddy. I thought it was a good, solid performance for Swayno. Maybe he was just a little bit too close to the pace last time out at a distance that was a little bit too far for him. I like him cutting back, and I think a mid-pack trick is coming. Swayno, my top pick. You got to use another Twist of Fate as well. Let's move from dirt to turf, but Grade 1 stakes action coming up with the Jenny Wiley Stakes. Lots of stakes races on tap at Keeneland on Saturday. Let's take a look at the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley Stakes, carded as race number 10. It's 1 1/16 on the turf for fillies and mares. $350,000 is the purse. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend, including the Jenny Wiley, plus lots more, please visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, you're going with Todd Pletcher at a price you rarely necessarily get Todd Pletcher at a price, but you do when Chad Brown has 3 turf horses in a race.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy for Bellevais to beat the 3 Chad Brown horses in here, but I do think Bellevais has some things going for her. First of all, I think she's really improved since Pletcher's taken over for the last 4 starts. And in her most recent race, the Grade 3 Honey Fox down at Gulfstream, I just feel like she had a little bit of a trip that may go unnoticed. She was in behind the 1-2 finishers on the second turn. They got clear before she did it. She had to wait for them to get out of her way. We're going to pick up the replay at the top of the stretch, and this is where she's just coming clear. You can see the 1-2 finishers are already in front of her. I actually feel like she puts in a pretty good run in this race, though. She's going to start gaining ground on these 2 horses. You'll see at the end of this replay, she's still not out in the open. She's over behind those 2 horses, and I think it's costing her momentum at the end of this race. I think there's a way to look at this performance and say she could have won that race and be into this spot on a 3-for-4 win streak for Pletcher. I think she fits well in here. I think she can get a good trip in this race. I'm going to take her at a price in this spot.
Matt, it certainly looks like Chad has this race surrounded, however, with the speed in Rushing Fall, the stalker in Rimska, and the closer On the Moon again. What can you say about Rushing Fall? She's looking for her 4th graded victory at Keeneland.
Yeah, and you can make the argument, I think anyway, that with the exception of one sort of subpar ride, there's a real possibility that she's a perfect 7 for 7. And I understand first time going against older horses, first time off of a layoff, catching a salty group. I think she's going to be ready to go. Let's go back to her 3-year-old finale last year. This is the QE2 Cup. She's out there on the front, and I think, Dan, you talked about it. She has some speed, but she has versatility. If someone else is absolutely intent on making the front, she doesn't need to go. She can sit just off and be as effective. And we've talked about it in the past. Keeneland's turf's a little bit on the quirky side, and the fact that she's a perfect 3 for 3 over it, I don't think that's anything to sneeze at. I think she's just a major player in here. I don't know if 6 to 5 is a great price on her, but I think she's a main win player.
I've always been a big fan of Rimska, who beat 3 of these common foes last time out in the Grade 2 Hillsborough Stakes. 2 starts back in her seasonal debut, the Swanee River. I think she was ridden too confidently by Arad Ortiz, who just let the pace setter walk the dog, going 51-4 and 116-3 for 3/4. By the time Rimska got into the stretch, that horse was going, gone. Rimska was moving at the end of that race, but she would have to have flown home to have beaten that horse. Last time out in the Hillsborough, Ortiz decided he had to be closer to the pace. You see her here in the pocket. She's going to move to the outside and basically say, phantom opening, get out of my way, and watch how Rimska kicks. Once she gets to the clear outside of this pace setter, she is just going to fly on home. And really the key, I think, on Saturday in the Jenny Wiley is whether Rimska can get a similar trip. If she's too far back, she might have too much to do to catch a horse like Rushing Fall. But if she can sit mid-pack, she kicks on strongly. Rimska will be my top selection in the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley Stakes. David Aragona of Timeform US previews the Arkansas Derby in his Spotlight section, and then we'll be back with best bets for Saturday.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. The Derby qualifying races wrap up this weekend with the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby on Saturday at Oaklawn Park, and 2 of the main players moving on to the Kentucky Derby will be putting in their final prep races here. Those are Omaha Beach and Improbable, but this is a pretty interesting race that drew a large field of 11 runners, and I think the first thing we should discuss as we start to handicap this race is the pace. The Timeform US Pace Projector is predicting a fast pace, which is not surprising when you just take a glance through the running styles of the horses in this field. There are a ton of horses that want to be placed close to the early pace, including some horses that are stretching out from sprint races, like the number 6 Great Attempt and the number 4 Teakfin Flew, who are both coming out of one-turn races, but also horses like the long shot number 9 One Flew South will want to be forwardly placed. Of course, number 3 Omaha Beach, one of the favorites in this race. He likes to run his best races up close to the front, and even Improbable isn't likely to be that far off the pace. So if they go way too fast up front, that could make matters difficult for the 2 shortest prices on the morning line, and those are the 2 horses that I'll begin my discussion with, starting with the number 3 Omaha Beach. He's coming off a win in the 2nd division of the Rebel 4 weeks ago, where he beat Game Winner, and Game Winner has obviously returned in top form this year as a 3-year-old, so Omaha Beach deserves a ton of credit for holding off that foe in the late stages. Those 2 were well ahead of the rest of the field, and that 117 Timeform US speed figure that he earned for that effort is among the fastest prep races that we've seen put down by any of the 3-year-olds that are out there. Omaha Beach has clearly improved a lot in his recent starts, and he is a dirt router. There's no doubt about that. Now, the question for him is, can he survive a fast pace in this race? Because he likes to be up close to the pace. He's not the kind of horse that gets really headstrong. He's more of a galloping type, but I don't think he's going to be coming from well off the pace here. Mike Smith is going to let him roll away from there and be just try to survive the pace. We'll see if it works out for him. At a very short price, he's not a horse I want to pick on top, but I certainly respect his talent. And I could say many of the same things about Improbable, who is likely to be the favorite in this race. He ran well in the first division of the Rebel. It was just slightly slower than the other division, really no difference between the two. He probably ran the best race that day, going wide around both turns and making an early move to the lead before getting cut down late by long-range Toddy. I don't have any argument with that. The question for him is really, is he going to improve, stretching out to the 1 1/8 distance, and can he survive a fast pace? Bob Baffert is putting blinkers on for this start, which seems like an unusual move to make. I guess he didn't like the way that he gave up the race last time after making the lead at the 8th pole. But if the blinkers make him too keen in the early going, that could really affect his chances in this race, because I don't think Bob Baffert wants him to be too close to suicidal fractions. So I respect Improbable's talent, just like Omaha Beach. I'm just not really looking to bet him at a very short price. Looking at the horse that beat Improbable last time, Long Range Toddy, in that first division of the Rebel, he got a perfect trip that day. John Court gave him a fantastic ride, saving ground every step of the way and waiting for Improbable to make that early move before angling out around horses to run him down at the end of that race. But Long Range Toddy just makes his own good trips because he breaks out of the gate very sharply all of the time. He can put himself in a tactical position. He doesn't really have to be close to the pace. He can be far off the pace. I think Long Range Toddy is a horse that you don't want to regard too lightly in this race, because even though most people will think that Improbable is the more talented horse coming out of that first division of the Rebel, Long Range Toddy might work out the right trip once again here, and I don't want to dismiss him given that he's likely to be a square price once again. I'm definitely using him, but my top pick is the number 8 Country House, and maybe I'm just giving this horse too many chances because he hasn't really stepped through that open door that's waiting for him yet. He got opportunities in the Risen Star and the Louisiana Derby, and he has not accrued enough Derby points to get into the race yet. It's not really Bill Mott's style to keep chasing points in this fashion, trying to get a horse into a race like the Derby, so I'm taking it as a vote of confidence that he's running this horse back on short rest in the Arkansas Derby, and I like this rider switch to Joel Rosario. Nothing against Luis Saez, but I thought he rode both of those last 2 races at Fairgrounds as if they were races at Gulfstream Park. He just made early moves on the far turn, and the far turn at Fairgrounds is a pretty tight turn because they have that long stretch there. Rather than waiting to get into the stretch to make the closing move with this horse, he sacrificed ground by going wide around those turns, and you just can't do that at the Fairgrounds. I think Joel Rosario is going to be a little more patient with this horse, and he's able to be in a race that features so much pace like this. Looking through the late pace ratings of all of the horses in this race, Country House stands out. He gets a 110 Timeform US late pace rating, which is something you want to look for in a race that is going to feature a very fast pace like this. And honestly, his speed figures, the top ones, they're not that far behind horses like Improbable and Omaha Beach. He got a 111 Timeform US speed figure in the Louisiana Derby last time. And if he ever gets back to that 116 he earned in that runner-up finish behind Kentucky Wildcat as a 2-year-old, he could really be a major factor in this race. I just think if this race comes apart at the end, Country House is the most likely to take advantage of that situation, and he's going to be a square price this time. So I'm taking a shot with the number 8 Country House in the Arkansas Derby on Saturday. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Matt, you're doing the rain dance at Oaklawn on Saturday.
Yeah, the 9th race is the Oaklawn Handicap, and this needs to be sort of explained. This isn't a best bet, meaning I think this is the most likely winner, but I just think he's probably going to outrun the odds that he's likely to be. That's the number 3, Chris and Dave. This is a field littered with horses that, at shorter prices, I don't trust them, whether they're making equipment changes, running style, a wet surface, you name it. There's a number of things going against some of the shorter prices. Chris and Dave, let's go back to the Essex in his most recent start. Look, he didn't get the job done here. He finished 5th, but I like the way that he just continued to fight on. I know this race is at 1 1/16 and the Oaklawn Handicap's 1 1/8. That distance is an unknown. This is a horse that likes to settle for sort of minor awards throughout his career, but if the wet weather shows up, I think he moves up tremendously as opposed to some of these other ones. He's 4 for 6 lifetime on a wet track, 5 for 6 in the exacta, and he's facing a number of common opponents. I just think this is an opportunity. He's 20-1 on the morning line. Again, far from the likeliest of winners. I think he'll outrun his odds, though.
Mike, you're going for the old Out of the gate, horse watch best bet combo at Keeneland.
Yeah, Bar Harbor was a horse watch after his debut back in February for Shug. He debuted it on turf at Gulfstream Park. He's making his second start at Keeneland on Saturday, race number 3. It's a maiden race, a mile on the turf. I guess the biggest obstacle for Bar Harbor may be the post. He's drawn way out in post 12, so he's going to need a trip in this race. There are a couple of other interesting horses in here, but I like this horse's debut a lot. He's got a big pedigree. Let's look at the debut run. They just took him back early in this race, let him sit off the pace. You can see as they come into the stretch, Jose Ortiz riding this day. He stayed in for the stretch. This horse starts running, though, as they get down past the 8th pole here. He's over behind horses. Now he's just going to try and find somewhere to go, and it's not really perfect for him. He still races on right to the end. He gets up for second. I thought this was a really good debut. If he can get any kind of trip from post 12, he takes a step forward and start number 2. I think he's going to be tough to beat.
I'll go to Mike's neck of the woods, Aqueduct, race number 8 to number 5. My Miss Lily, who showed some promise last year on the Kentucky Oaks Trail. Heck, she won the Gazelle over this course in distance. After a bad performance in the Oaks and a 3rd place finish in the Mother Goose, she went to the sidelines and missed the rest of the year with injury. She made a return to the races in her 4-year-old debut in a 1-turn mile at Gulfstream, and we'll take a look at that race right now. She was hemmed in. She's the big gray, and she was hemmed in all the way on the backstretch into the turn. She's finally going to come out now, and I wonder if here she's going to feel the effects of the layoff with sort of an even finish. That was her first start of the year, off that long 8-month layoff. She gets back to Aqueduct where she's done well. I'm hoping that the mile and an 1/8 is good for her, and I really like her tactical speed. She showed some talent last year, and I think she had some excuses for her seasonal debut. 7-2 on the morning line. That's the 5, My Miss Lily, in the 8th race at Aqueduct. We thank you so much for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings. Please follow on social media on Twitter at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.